Hello, welcome back to another video. It's Lydia here. So today we're going to be talking about one of my smaller collections, which is the Game Boy. So the Game Boy, obviously a really classic console. A lot of people have a lot of nostalgia for it. And obviously it's a portable one as well. So a lot of people used to take it around everywhere with them as a kid. And yeah, it's a great little console. It's a classic. And like I said, lots and lots of nostalgia with a lot of the games, especially like the Nintendo exclusives like Mario. But I'm going to be talking about should you buy a Game Boy console or not, and there are other alternatives. Should you get the alternative instead? So the main subject of today's video is going to be, should you get an actual Game Boy console, either the classic, pocket or colour, or should you go for something a bit more alternative such as the Analogue Pocket? Now, I'll be talking about the pros and cons of each of these and my personal thoughts on which you should go for. But without further ado, let's go. So let's start off with the originals. So here I've got a Game Boy Color and I've got a Game Boy Pocket. So this is a bit smaller than the original one. It's much more compact. It just looks a bit more sleeker. The original one has got a really cool design to it. I would love to get one, but they're really expensive at the moment. And then the Game Boy Color obviously has the games in color. Now, the main drawback, which pretty much everyone knows about of these consoles in particular, is they do not have a backlight screen. So it means that any kind of darkness, you cannot see these games at all. What you can do is you can mod them. They're very easy to mod. You can get backlight screens. You can change the batteries so you can have a USB charge instead. There's lots of things you can do. People customize the cases all the time. That is something that's really cool about these consoles. They are very customizable, and that's something to keep in mind if that's something that interests you. But the main drawback is it's really hard to see the screen. You can change the contrast with these little buttons at the side, but to be honest, if you put the contrast up too much, the screen turns black. If you put it too low, it turns white. You can't see anything either way. So it's really hard to get a good balance with it. It's just very difficult to see. If you've got any kind of eyesight problems, you'll really struggle to see these. So what you have to do is kind of sit behind a natural source of light. Yeah, it's quite difficult to play them. Now, the consoles themselves are very basic. You basically have your two A and B buttons. You have the start, select, and obviously the D-pad here. But yeah, that's pretty much it with these. Very simple. So a lot of the games do play very simply. The style of games is fairly limited with the Game Boy games. A lot of them were platformers, but you do get some shooters, some small variety of games like that. But as I said, they are very 2D and you're very limited with these two buttons. So yeah, as terms of gameplay, you're not going to get a huge variety of like really cool graphic games with like really unique gameplay styles, but there are quite a lot of classic games on here too. Now, let's talk about the main thing that might become a big issue with the Game Boys now is the price point is quite expensive these days. Now, especially if you're going to go for an original Game Boy, that's the grey ones that are really chunky, the really cool original design. Those can sometimes come out over £100. Now, for a console, I think that's really expensive, especially for these Game Boy consoles. Like I said, they're not like a particularly complicated piece of tech, which means you're not really getting very good value for money, unlike other consoles that you plug into your TV. Not many of those are over £100. So to pay £100 for one of these, I think is way too much. And yeah, I just think it's way too expensive. So in my view, they're a bit too pricey to get these days, but you might get lucky, you might find one cheap. Sometimes the pockets are cheaper and the Game Boy Colors are cheaper. Like I said, the original ones can be much more expensive because they are the originals. But yeah, I just don't think it's worth the price unless you can find them for cheap. The other thing is obviously they are battery powered. Now, this might not be a problem. Batteries aren't super expensive, but they are starting to be phased out quite a lot, so it is a bit annoying. You do have the risk of, if you forget about them, the batteries can decay, which can ruin your console as well, so that's something else to think about. If you're not playing it a lot and you are prone to leaving things on the side and forgetting about them, that is an issue with this. In fact, this one no longer works anymore because I literally did the same thing. So unfortunately, that is a problem with these consoles or anything battery powered. If you do leave them for too long, they are prone to decay and then you're pretty much screwed. And if you're paying a lot of money for these, again, it can take a while to fix them. It can cost money to fix them. So that is something to bear in mind. In terms of the pro side of it, like I said, I actually don't think there's too many pros to having the Game Boy consoles unless you are a big collector. So I personally really like having the original consoles. I love being able to actually see them, even if I don't play them lots and I have alternatives. It's really nice to have the option of playing them how they originally intended to be played. That's why I have these. I really like the look of them, and it brings me a lot of nostalgia and joy to see them. And yeah, I just think they're very cool looking. They are fun to play on, but like I said, they do have their issues, such as not having a backlight screen. That's my main bugbear with this console, but again, you can't expect much because of the age of these. The other pro is that they are obviously really fun to customize. So there's loads and loads of shops where you can find different shells. People have customized them and painted them. People put backlight screens into them. They put different battery packs into them. So there are loads of options, and it's not super expensive to do yourself if you wish to. The parts are generally not too bad to buy yourself. But if you wanted to buy one that's been customized, again, they can end up anywhere from £100 to like £200 or more if you want to go for like a full customized set. So really, you are talking about a brand new console, and there's not really anything original about the console anymore other than the fact that it's using the old shell. You're kind of changing it so much, it's not really the original console anymore. And absolutely no judgment if people want to do that. The customized ones look really, really cool, and I definitely don't blame people for wanting to do it. But again, you are spending a lot of money to customize it. And again, the base console is not very cheap anymore. If they were like £5, £10, £20, which at one point they used to be, unless you're getting one for that price, you're still going to be forking out at least another £50, £60 to customize it yourself. So that is something to think about. If you want to, go ahead. It looks super fun to do it, and I would like to do it with my own console someday, but just bear in mind, it's not a cheap console to buy either way. Okay, so now we've talked about the Game Boy. I hope it didn't come across too negative because, like I said, I still think it's a really great console. I just think there's a lot of cons to it more than there are pros. But if you want to get one, absolutely go ahead for it and you can afford it. Please do, don't let me put you off. But I am going to talk about the Analogue Pocket now and why I feel that this might be a better alternative to play Game Boy games, because there is so many pros with it. I can't see why you wouldn't want to be playing the games on this. So let's talk about the lovely Analogue Pocket. Now, obviously, this is a great looking little console. Looks very, very similar to a Game Boy, except on this, you've got more buttons. You've got the 4 buttons now as well. You've got the D-pad, you've got some buttons here, and you also have volume and turn on button here too. Now, the main great thing about this is that you can play Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance by default on this console. So you're already able to play 3 different consoles on this particular console, which is already a winner for you. Price point, I will put the current price of this console up on screen just so that I can double check it's accurate, but you're not going to be paying much more for this than a customized Game Boy. And for the amount of games that you can play on this and for the benefits of it, this is way better value for money. Now, the main thing is it does have a backlit screen. It's a really crisp, lovely screen. And all the games look really, really great on it. So that is the main plus of this. Also, it is USB chargeable, so you never have to worry about batteries again. Obviously, when you're on the go, that's something that is always great to be able to do, is if you have a power bank, you can constantly be charging it up, so you never have to stop playing. It does also have a save state. So unlike a lot of Game Boy games which you can't save, this one you can save the games. So it means that actually you don't have to be leaving your Game Boy on all the time. Unlike with the original Game Boy, if you didn't want to lose your progress, you had to leave the Game Boy on. Otherwise you switch it off, it's all gone. Whereas this, you don't have that problem. You can leave it on standby as well, so you're not wasting lots of battery. But again, it's USB chargeable, so it's not a problem if you leave it charging either. Now, an even cooler thing about the Analogue Pocket is you can play it on the TV. Now, it has a dock that you can put into the HDMI of your TV. So very much like the Switch, you can put it in there and you can play all of those games on your TV, which is really, really cool. Obviously, not everyone will want to do that, but it's really nice to have the option because sometimes you want to sort of sit on your sofa and cuddle up in a blanket or whatever. And you can do that with this, which I think is a really awesome feature of it. Another really great feature of the Analogue Pocket is that you can get extensions, so you can play even more different consoles on it. So this one in particular is a Game Gear extension. Now, I know there's a lot more that you can get, but I'm not going to quote myself on it because I can't remember what ones they are. But all you do is you push it in the back, and then you put the Game Gear in here, and voila, you've got a Game Gear console now as well, which even better because Game Gears are very, very expensive and very unreliable consoles. So even more options for more games that you can play, which is really, really cool. And yeah, you get so much value for money with this, and it's just a really great, convenient way to play all your Game Boy games. It does have some other really cool features as well, where you can actually make music on it. So you can make Game Boy music too. So yeah, the kind of options that you can play around with this console, there's so many. And yeah, like I said, it's the best way to play multiple consoles on one console, and you get all the benefits of sort of more modern tech, but without any of the drawbacks of the old tech. And you're also able to play all of your favorite games on this console. So, like I said, I personally think this might be the best option if you want to play Game Boy games and you want to collect for them, and you want all the convenience of having a backlit screen and being able to play on different consoles without having to fork out lots and lots and lots of money for different consoles, different customizations. This is probably your best option. But don't take my word for it. What I will do is I'm going to play both consoles side by side, show you a bit of a side-by-side comparison, show you all the things that the Analogue Pocket can do, and yeah, just let you know my thoughts on it. that concludes the video. Please let me know down in the comments which you prefer. Are you convinced on the Analogue Pocket, or do you prefer the Game Boy? Do you think there's anything that I've missed about the original Game Boy that I should have spoken about? Let me know down below. Let me know which is your preference, which is your favourite games, because I always love hearing your thoughts on it too. In the meantime, don't forget to follow me on my social medias. I'll leave all the links down below. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell if you want to keep up to date with all my videos. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!